I recently decided to take my dust collection here in the shop to a whole new level. The first thing I wanted to get sorted out was getting the proper duct work and get myself as knowledgeable as I can on how to pick the right type of duct work to use, whether that's drain pipe PVC, Schedule 40, which most people don't use because it's crazy expensive. And then of course we've got the metal duct work behind me, which is what I ended up going with here in the shop. I also started my dust collection with a Harbor Freight dust collector, and it has served me well for the past year. And I am going to continue to use it, but I can already tell it's going to struggle keeping up with all of the ductwork here that I've installed in the shop. And I did anticipate that. If I needed to, I can go back to the old way of doing it if I have any problems. And some machines, no problems, and I'll talk about those in a second, but the further away that run, the more somewhat problematic it can become. So what I was doing before is I was actually I had a quick connect system that you can get at Rockler, and basically I installed that quick connect on all of my machines, and then from the Harbor Freight I would drag the hose around and connect it to each port for each machine as I wanted to use it. And that was effective, no doubt about that. That worked. The problem, of course, with it is I got a massive trip hazard with a 40-foot long 4-inch hose. And the longer you run 4-inch hose, the less suction power you're going to get. So that's not a great choice either, depending on the size of your shop. For some shops, that could be a perfect choice. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, I'd like to talk about the sponsor of this video, and that is Artisan Woodshed. So go to artisanwoodshed.com if you have any interest whatsoever in purchasing any cutting boards, whether it's edge grain, end grain, anything like that. My wife and I make those here in the shop. This is Artisan Woodshed for the record. And so check out our website. You can also find us out there on Etsy. We do a lot of work with epoxy, do river tables, tabletops, anywhere from large charcuterie boards to everything else in between. Do a lot of work with resin as well as edge grain and end grain cutting boards. So check us out, artisanwoodshed.com. All right, so today I'm going to talk about all the things the lessons I learned and the mistakes that I made, hopefully so you can avoid that in the future. First up, the first thing I had to decide is what size ductwork am I going to get? First, I thought, because I didn't know any better, I would just run all 4-inch ductwork through here and call it a day, and that would be the best setup. I mean, it's already going 4-inch in and out of my machine, so why not just run 4-inch ductwork everywhere? Well, I, like many of you, went out and searched and researched and researched and researched and watched 400 videos on everything. After all of that research, I decided that 6-inch was the way to go. Now, there's a lot of information about there on the web, and you can make that choice for you, but for this shop, I decided to go with 6-inch because everything is, from what I understand, you can get a lot more air pressure, volume pressure. There's technical words for it. But as an example, this is a 6-inch. Now, this is part of it's missing the top part to it, a 6-inch to 4-inch reducer, right? So you can see there the difference is quite significant. And then to go to 4-inch, you would go into there. Of course, like I said, that's missing the other part. All right, so I went with 6-inch ductwork. You'll need to do your own research and figure out what's best for you in your shop. Obviously, the bigger the pipe, the more expensive it is. Next up, I had to decide what kind of ductwork do I want to use. Okay, do I want to use sewer drain pipe, which is the most inexpensive and economical way of going about it. It is the most inexpensive out there. It's about half the price of Schedule 40 PVC. And so there's really no point in going with Schedule 40. You're not running water through it, high pressure water. You're just running air through it. It's a vacuum. So going with sewer drain pipe is more than fine. You just tape up the connections and don't have to worry about it. And that way, if you got to take it apart, boom, you just untape it, take it apart, and do whatever modifications that you want to. So there's that. So I go with that. So I've got sewer drain pipe. I've got Schedule 40 PVC, and then lastly, I've got metal ductwork. Now, there's really two types from what I've sorted out there. This type, which is the most readily available, that has these ribbed edges all the way on the sides, has the ribbed edges and everything, and that's for kind of interlocking between that and the next piece that goes on about it, and then you just tape up that connection where you've got it. I just use literally duct tape. I wonder where they got that name from, duct tape. So anyway, put that around there, and we'll talk about some lessons learned from duct tape in a minute. But ultimately, I went with this, and the main reason, there were two main reasons I decided to go with metal. The first one, every single professional shop that I've either been to or seen on YouTube, or anywhere else for that matter, has been metal ductwork. And from all my research, it is the best. Whether this is the best, this style or not, that is to be debated by you scholars out there. I am not one. I've already done it in this, so I don't care. I've done it in this. But anyway, there's another part that you can buy that's more expensive. Like you can buy, there's several companies that make it specifically for dust collection. And those just join up and connect easier and better without having to do some necessary cutting, and I'll get into that when I talk about the dust collection, okay? So anyway, I went with this, and all in all, as you'll see the ductwork throughout here in my shop, this cost me about $600 all in. Like I said, that was the main reason. That was number one. I guess the second reason, I forgot to mention that. But the second reason is readily available fittings. They're much more readily available in this than they are 6-inch sewer drain pipe. 4-inch fittings galore. Others, you've got to order them. And I wanted to be able to buy more than I needed. And whatever I don't need, I'll just take back and return and get my money back. All right. So now you figured out how I made the decisions and what I did. Let's get over there and let's start looking at the ductwork. I apologize for the awkward view, but I'm doing two cameras here. But it's going to get the point across. I'll be using my trusty little pointer here, my handy dandy dowel. Okay, so this is the Harbor Freight impaler. So I'm going to pull up a picture of the Harbor Freight unit installed on its portable stand here while I'm talking about this. And then I'll make it go away, and there it's gone. It's bye-bye. So anyway, so I unmounted the impaler, as well as this part right here. Now, when you saw in the picture there, this had a cloth bag filter that was absolutely terrible. And thing never really worked worth a darn. And so it got a lot of dust. It's supposed to stop 5 micron, but it doesn't. A lot of harmful stuff. And so anyway, I ordered this Win environmental filter, which is made for the Harbor Freight dust extractor. And this really made a huge freaking difference. And then from here, this bucket collects the very super fine dust from it. Now, I'm not going to go into that because this is really all about ductwork. We come in, and this is where I use the first way, and I'm splitting directions. We're going to follow the way around to my left. Again, I've got a blast gate right there, and that goes around, and you can see back over here where I use that metal banding, and because I have cinder block walls, it was easier for me just to do a 2x4 on the wall. That way I only had to drill 2 screws, one on one end and one on the other. And then I could use that to screw in the metal band work that you see right there. Again, this is that drum down there. You just pull that latch back, and that top just comes right off, and we go from there. All right, so we're going to go around back behind this cabinet. We're going to continue on here. Now, here's another thing that I want you to pay attention to. I preferred duct tape when I did this, but know that getting duct tape off, this is one of those lessons learned. Getting duct tape off, you might as well just forget about it. You're going to have to cut at that seam if you needed to take this apart and redo something. So that does make it a pain in the butt. But if you don't at least start taping it as you go, as you start pulling things and shifting things around to try to get things to fit, you'll end up pulling out the other end. Been there, did that too many times. I come down here, and then I go to that way right there. That goes down to a 4-inch reduction. That is the dust collection obviously for my bandsaw, all right? Here I've got my second way that's coming off of it. This one is going up, and I'll follow that in just a second. And then this one comes out and comes over here to the left. Now I've got my last and final way on this particular section. That comes down and goes to this 4-inch blast gate right here, okay? And so then I can use that to drag that around to the shop or clean up or do whatever I need to with it. And then, of course, up here, I've got my other blast gate. Let's go ahead and close that so we don't forget. And that is coming over to my drum sander, all right? And so that's the extent of that. Now, one of the things that I wished I hadn't have done, as you can see right there, I've got that wood rack basically right above that. So let's hope that doesn't fall. All right, now we're back over to the way that goes behind the bandsaw. We're coming up, and as you can see here, it's gonna come up and it's gonna go over above my garage door opener, come back down. You can see over there, I've got the little metal bands securing it, and it's holding it up there in the ceilings. And then I bring that down and I'll go to the other side of my table saw. Give me a second, I'll walk around there. All right, so you can see there, look, I left my duct tape up there. I'll be doggone. Sitting on top of my garage door part. Okay, so anyway, you can see where that comes down and comes down there. If you're curious about that metal pipe, that's how I run 220. I ran the 220 out to my machines, and I've just got it coming down that. And then we're gonna come down here, and we're gonna go into our first way there. So now that's the first way coming down from the ceiling, all right? And so from there, here's where it sucks. I mean, this just sucks, and I've got to come up with a better idea than this. It just didn't work out, and I really didn't think this through. But in here real quick, you can see here on my Harvey table saw, right? I put in this Jessam, let me straighten that up there. I put in my Jessam router table, and I just got this old generic PowerTech. I do plan to replace this top here with the cast iron one at some point, and also do the miter saw from Harvey, just to kind of make this whole thing here complete. But of course I had to do my this. So I basically pulled the old one out and I redid this one. And I've also got dust collection under here. Now the dust collection under here comes down, and so part of that on the back side of it, you see that 3.5 inch or 3-inch hose, that comes back up here and goes to the dust collection back there on the back of the fence, okay? So you can see here where that is being, let me get down in here, sorry. You can see down in there where that blast gate down there, that controls what's going to the router table. That blast gate back there is what's going to, ultimately is going to the table saw, as you can see there. And that's also got another hose connection coming out of it. And, oh, my knees, I'm getting old. And that, although I find this works and it's effective on that Harvey table saw, however, it's a pain in the butt, gets in the way, so I end up removing it way more than I use it. Just lesson learned. All right, so now from here, once that way comes down, so that comes down off of there and then goes back under there for those 2 units. So yes, old man's got to get down on the hands and knees and open up those gates when I'm using those machines. The biggest problem is the table saw. It's used the most, all right? So anyway, coming over here, another blast gate here, and then that can be closed, and that is ultimately going to my, that is going to my jointer, all right? So again, a quick recap of that whole thing. We started back over there. We went around over there, down over there, back up, over, down, under, to the right, last connection, done. Now, one of the things that I may do is put another way coming off of that blast gate down there, maybe move that blast gate and come away off of that and then do that sweep thing on this side of the shop that I can connect to the hose, right? So we're gonna go backwards here this time. All right, at the moment I'm using this DeWalt planer. Does a great job. The only issue I have with it, it's only 13 inches and I could really use a 21-inch wide planer. So anyway, that's a problem. So anyway, it's got, I had to use that port right there. This is a combination of things. And the reason being more than anything else is my hose was too short. And I didn't have any more hose. And when that hose was coming down there, it wouldn't reach all the way down. So I kind of had to rig this, right? And so I don't want this thing going down tilted angle. So that's what this is doing. It's following that metal band up there, and it's just securing it up there from the ceiling. It's not great long term, and I will want to ultimately to change that. back to just a hose going all the way down, but that's a project for another day. All right, so here I also needed to put a blast gate here. The reason I did this plastic one right here is because of weight. The metal ones are super expensive, and I didn't want this pulling down and weighing more than it had to. So anyway, I just open that bad boy up whenever I want to do the planer. And if you're familiar with this planer, my gosh, you don't even need dust collection on it. You don't need a vacuum on it. You just need something to contain the dust, which I had been using that right there. So all the dust off the planer had been going in there and emptying the bag. But now, since I've got that big 55-gallon drum, it's so much easier to do that. So again, we're heading back up, and you can see there. And the main reason I didn't finish that off is I wanted to leave myself options for later on. I do have some ideas about putting something over on my workbench behind me, above it, but so I'm leaving myself options here for right now. Coming over here, and I've got a way right there that is coming down up there, and I'll bring that down in just a second. You can see my miter station back there, and you can see that piece right there is going to be mounted underneath, back behind it under there, so all of the dust will get sucked in back behind that, okay? So let's pull this down here. Now this is rigged to high heaven right now. Now you're saying, what in the world is that? And you'd be right. Ultimately, I had to ultimately do this like this, just so I could really cancel out that line. And I'm just doing it right here. This will be changed out for something else later on. But anyway, what I've got here is I've got a blast gate there. So this is coming down from that way over there. That's my Mr. Cool, by the way. I put that in. That thing's been a godsend because we live in Central Florida. So anyway, back down here, boom, we've got that. And then off of here, this is just a temporary hose, is going over to the boot that will go in part of the CNC machine when I get that finally ready for that. The other piece, what I'm going to do is end up doing a quick connect that goes back and forth between the CNC machine and here, and just do a quick connect that's off of magnets and everything, and be able to take that, and then if I needed to use that to clean up even more dust that maybe doesn't, I can take that back there and just move that hose around and clean that up real easy, and get the front of the miter station as well as the tabletop. Just makes it easier, and then I won't have to use so many freaking shop vacs in my shop anymore. Well, I'm always going to be using shop vacs, so don't kid ourselves, Barry. Okay, so anyway, there you go. We're going up, we're going over. So you got the plan for the miter station. We're coming down here. Now we're heading back to the dust collection system. And then we've got the handy dandy Harbor Freight thing that does the job. Anyway, off of here, I'm also going to split off of here. So anyway, let me get that, boom, pop it up there. We're coming over there. And then coming down through here. And now you can see where we're back over here again, all right? And so down to right here, now I've got this blast gate as we talked about before. That way, if I don't want to send anything all the way back over to my planer and everything, I don't have to. I can just ultimately get back over here and just shut that down, okay? So we've got that. And so this is going to, again, feed underneath. I'm also going to have a split that's going to go for that. That'll go in the dust collection of that sander there. And that is the dust collection of the whole shop. Well, I talked today about some of the mistakes I made, some of the lessons learned, why I made some of the choices that I made, and then a couple of things, if I were to do it all over again, what would I do differently? And I talked about a couple of those. The Harbor Freight has done a really good job for me thus far. But quite honestly, what do you expect for $300? It's not the right type system for a shop of this size. This is a 2.5 car garage. It's a detached garage here at our house in Central Florida. And ultimately, it's a fairly large space. I think it's 30 by 20. So it's a fairly large space. And so these runs are quite lengthy. And like I said, it's working and it's going to get it done. But I do plan to upgrade to a Harvey system at some point in 2024. Hopefully, probably not till around closer to December of this year coming up, because today is January 1. Happy New Year, everybody. So hopefully you found this informative. Hopefully you liked it. Do me a favor, leave me some comments down below. Tell me what you think. Tell me about lessons you've learned. Tell me about some mistakes that you saw that I made. can't hurt my feelings. Don't worry about it. This is how we learn and grow, by staying open-minded when we're talking to each other and having a deep, deep, deep desire to learn, because that's super duper important, okay? So until next time, I hope all of you have a great day. Go make something great. And if it's not great, learn how to fix your mistakes, because that, my friends, is the key to not giving up on a lot of projects. You want to get better, but you also got to learn how to fix the mistakes too. Bye-bye.